makers, I'm Catherine Harris with Stitchery, and this is your spot for all things sewing and DIY. And today I wanted to kick off Christmas holiday making. So I thought I would show you how to make this advent calendar. Let's get to it.
Snowfall and the world is aglow with cheer today. Throw all of your worries and woes and cares astray. Hope is brimming, the roads begin to be shoveled and cleared away.
Now, to start off with, I have a free printable for the entire calendar icons here that you can use and print out. Just make sure that you don't use any scaling when you do print it out. And I have two PDFs. The first one is the mirror image for the transfer method that I'm going to show you first, and the second PDF is the regular version that you can use for the second method that I am going to show you. That being said, you don't have to use this calendar for this PDF. You could create your very own design and advent calendar. And I would love it if you tagged me on Instagram if you decided to make this and used any of those images. So let's get into the tutorial. Now, I was doing a bit of research on some wooden advent calendars, and I've seen a lot of them out there that are using supplies that people find at the dollar store that you may have found perhaps in summer but aren't readily available there, or at least they are not available here in Canada. And so I wanted to make sure that I used materials that you would be able to find year after year. So I decided to go with this design because you can find this wooden template for this at Michael's stores every year. I have seen them for the past, I want to say at least 5+ years. They always go on sale for 50% off in and around Black Friday. So that is a really great time to nab them up. And they are only about $8 to $10 Canadian. So it is a very good value, especially when you see a lot of these other advent calendars going for as much as $50 in the stores. So let's get into how to make them. Transfer an image to wood, method number 1. Now, I am going to show you two different techniques that you can use to transfer designs onto wood using Mod Podge. Now, the first way is by transferring that method, and it really looks like it is painted on. That being said, this look is going to be a little bit more washed out and the colors are not going to be as vibrant, but it still looks really great. So let's get into that technique. Prepping the wood, all methods. So we're going to start with the little advent box here. And I am just going to go ahead and start with a base coat. I'm using this Martha Stewart chalk paint just because it is what I had on hand. Now you could spray paint these if you wanted to, but I do find that the chalk paint gives a really nice coverage to these drawers here. That being said, you could also use an acrylic paint or whatever you have on hand. Now I am just going in here with a small flat brush, and I really need to mix up this paint because it's a little bit old, so I'm just giving it a nice good stir. The one thing that I like about chalk paint is the fact that I only need to do one coat on these. If you're using an acrylic, this paint really does, or the wood sucks up the paint, so I think you may need to do about 3 coats of paint if you're using acrylic, but if you're using that thicker chalk paint, you can get away with doing 1. So I am actually going to paint the entirety of these boxes just so that everything is all nice and finished. Now you could skip the inside bit if you wanted to because you're not really going to see it, but I really wanted everything to have the same look and feel. And I am just going around the handle as well. And then I'm going to do that for all of the boxes, and you can see they still fit in here. Now, the next step that we're going to do is we are going to take the mirror image version of this. So we are going to print that out and don't use any scaling. And then we're just going to trim it out. Now I am using my quilting ruler and a rotary cutter to cut these out, though you can use scissors. It's just going to take you a little bit longer to cut them out. And don't worry about being too terribly exact, because in a later step, we are going to sand the edges down. So I am just going in here and separating them all into their individual squares. And going in, making sure that we have all of them, and make sure you recycle those other pieces of paper rather than putting them in the bin. And once we have them all separated out, then we can begin to attach them. So transfer the image to the wood, method number 1. So we are going to take our mirror image piece, and I am just folding it in half both ways so I can find the center and making the smallest cut in the center. Now, not big enough for it to go through the handle. That's key. Then you're going to take your scissors and you're going to snip in 2 horizontal or vertical lines just so it opens up. And this is going to allow us to get the image over that handle. And then you're going to take Mod Podge. I'm using matte, but you could use the shiny as well. And we're going to put a even layer of Mod Podge all the way around. You don't need to get the handle, just go around that. Then we are going to make sure that the image is right side up, and then we're going to place it face down so the ink side is touching that Mod Podge. And do not move it, because if you move it, it is going to smudge. I am just pressing down nicely to make sure that it adheres. So let's do that one more time. So just folding to find that center piece and then cutting out those slits, and then placing the Mod Podge on here so that it has something to adhere to. And then I am just going to go on here and press it down nice and securely to make sure that everything is nice and attached. And once you have that, just put it away so it has some time to dry. I left mine overnight. That being said, Mod Podge does dry a little bit quicker. So these are all dry, and then the magic happens. So you're just going to wet a small cloth with some water, and then you are just going to dab it on here lightly. So I actually found that the best way to do it was to use the cloth to dab the water on, and then use your finger to take away that paper. Go very gently, because if you go a little bit too much, you will rub off some of that ink. And so I am just going very gently here, just trying to get that off and coming in. And sorry about the lighting, it is kind of getting a bit of glare on the white here, so you can't see it as well. I'll do it on another one, which I don't think will give as much glare, but I'm just rubbing that paper off, and this is what it looks like. And this is what it all looks like when it's done in this method. And then you're just going to put Mod Podge on as a nice top coat to that. Transfer an image to wood, method number 2. Now the second technique I'm going to show you is by just decoupaging on the paper. So with this method, you are not going to mirror your image. You are just going to use the regular image, and we are going to adhere it. Now, this is what I have done for my final version of this advent calendar, because I liked how vibrant the colors were on this, and they weren't necessarily as smudged as the other version. So let's get into how I did that. So with this, I am just going over and repainting over the first version that I did. Now, if you are going to be doing method number 2, you can just skip this step because you have already primed it in that first step. So the next thing that I am doing is I am just sanding this down just slightly. Also a step that you can skip if you didn't do that first method first. Now, we are going to begin with our Mod Podge, and you want to print out the paper that is in the regular way, so it is not mirrored. And then we are going to put a nice even layer of Mod Podge along the base of each of the frame doors. And once we have that nicely coated, we are going to do the same thing in order to get that hole. We're going to fold it in half, and then we're going to fold it in half again, and then we're going to use our paper scissors and snip the smallest little corner here so that you have an area for it to go through, and then create 2 little vertical slits so it can go through that. Make sure it's facing upright, and then we are going to adhere it to the front of the drawer. And so you're just going to make sure that you're pushing that down nicely and that it is nice and straight. And then we can leave that to dry overnight or at least a couple of hours. So I'm just going to show you another one here really quickly. So just folding it in and making enough room so that we can get that handle through there and adding an even coat of Mod Podge. You don't need to layer it on. It just needs to be an even distribution of that Mod Podge. And once we have that done, they should all look like this. I just put them back in the little house here, the little tree. And then the last step here is we need to add Mod Podge to the outside once it is all done. So what I've done here is I've actually sanded down the edges. And so this allows you to make sure that any of the stuff that is hanging over is nicely fitted, and it gives it a more polished look. And then go in with a very thin layer of Mod Podge going all the way around the paper to make sure that it is sealed and weatherproof. I'm just going to show you that one more time. So I'm just going around the areas here, and I'm going to do that for all of the drawers here. And this goes nice and quick, and then what you're going to do is just let that dry. Once that is all nicely done with your Mod Podge. And I actually did a nutcracker theme with this. You can notice that you have Claire, you have the nutcracker, and a lot of other Christmas elements, which I thought were really cute. And so now for the rest of the Advent calendar. So with this, we are going to paint the base of our Advent calendar. And you can paint it whatever color you want, but given this is a Christmas tree, I am going to opt for a green. So I had this seafoam ocean. It's kind of a bluey green on hand. I love the pastel tones in it, but then I took an olivey leaf green and I mixed it to it, and this created a darker green, which is more what I was going for. So this is the first coat that I am putting on here, and this one sucked up the paint. So I did end up putting on 3 layers of paint, and on my last 2 layers of paint, I actually added in a little bit more of that sagey leaf green to make it just even more green, because I found that this one was just toning a little bit too blue for my liking in what I was going for. I still wanted to keep it in that nice pastel tone, but a little bit more green. And so I'm going to go and I am going to do all of the sides, the bottom, the back, and the front, and I'm going to give it all a nice, good base coat of paint. So just go ahead and do that and let that dry. In the meantime, we are going to add some dimension to our handles. Now you could leave them white if you wanted, but I am using this metallic champagne gold paint, and I am going to paint each of these handles because I think it gives a really nice look to it, and this is pretty glitzy and glammy and girly with all of the pastel tones and the nutcracker, and I just thought that this champagne gold was the perfect touch for that. Now I did try to cut off the ends of these tabs, and I found that it does not work. It actually wrecked my box and I had to re-glue it back together. So you will have to paint those. I wouldn't suggest trying to cut them off. And now that we have that base coat done, we are going to do our next 2 coats here. Obviously, we're going to let them dry in between, and you can see that I have added a significant amount more of that green paint, and this gave more of that minty green that I was after. And so I'm just going in here and I am painting through all of these nice little layers and making sure that everything is all touched up nicely. And 3 coats is absolutely perfect for this. So this is after 3 coats of paint. and then you can go ahead and cover that with Mod Podge if you want, but I'm going to embellish it just a little bit more. Now you could use paper, but I am going to use washi tape. So I have this an assortment of washi tapes that I thought went really well with this color palette, and so I am just going to add this almost like it is garland on the tree. So I'm just putting that around here, and then I'm just going to snap this off because it is on an angle. I can't continue to place that washi tape along here. And then I am just going to continue along the sides here. And the way in which I get this to sit down nicely is once I've got it pressed in place, then I go ahead with my scissors and I trim slightly close to the edge, but with enough that I can fold it over, because I don't want to have any exposed edges, because that is going to peel up when we put the Mod Podge on later to make everything nice and permanent. So really make sure that it is stuck nicely on there. And then I'm just going to go ahead on the other side, and I'll just show you a little bit closer version of how I am doing this. And I'm just folding it down, rubbing it in, and then just snipping that side and really making sure that it is nice and stuck, and then going in along the bottom area here. And so as I go in, I am just going in and snipping nice and close, folding over the edge. And you could really do any design that your heart desires, or even omit this portion. So I decided to do that for all of the tiers along my tree. So I am just going to continue that, and I'm going to speed this up just slightly because we've kind of went through this and it's pretty self-explanatory, and washi tape is pretty forgiving. So if you do make a mistake, you can just unstick it and re-stick it down, which is one of the great things about washi tape. And so I'm just going to continue along this bottom base here and do the sides. And sorry that some of it is a little bit off camera. It was a little bit taller than I had anticipated when I turned it off. And then I thought I wanted to do something nice along the top. So rather than having a star along the top, I'm going to place this nice washi tape right along the top for a nice little feature. It's got some nice gold details on here, so I thought that it really fit with the gold handles that I had placed on the boxes as well. And once we have that all done, then I'm just going in with my X-Acto knife, little tiny razor. I actually got this at the dollar store, and it is perfect because it is a tiny little blade, and it is perfect for going in. And you just slide off any of those edges that, because it's on an angle, it isn't going to lie nice and flat. So I'm just cleaning that up wherever it goes over. And apologies that my head went in there. Kind of detailed work, so I had to get nice and close. Next, I am adding a little bit of pink washi tape along the trunk. I wanted the trunk to stand out in a different color. So what I did is I placed it right across the side and then went up with my razor blade and then just folded it in. So I'm just slicing on either side and folding it in, and that just cuts like butter. The next thing that I am doing is I'm going to do the vertical strips going down the sides and just folding that over and coming in with the X-Acto knife to cut along each edge and then folding it in. And I find that that worked quite well. And then I'm going to do the bottom the exact same way that I had done the top, just cutting in those two little side pieces and folding them over. And you could leave it like this, but I decided to do the side pieces as well, just so that it was finished along the sides, depending on where I was going to be placing this throughout the years. So I am just going to add that washi tape right over the sides and using my razor to cut it because it does have a little bit of a lip. And I continued that on all the sides, and this is what it looks like. Next, we are going to take our Mod Podge and we are going to place it on top of this. And this is really going to hold that washi tape in place permanently and really give it a nice place for things to adhere to, and it's not going to come apart. So I am starting along the sides here. Now I also covered the back in that Mod Podge as well, just because I wanted to have a nice even coat along absolutely everything, and it will give a similar finish. And so I am just going over, and I did the sides and the front first, let them dry, and then flipped it over to do the back. And I find that Mod Podge doesn't take too long to dry, so you could do a couple of coats if you wanted to. And once that is done, it is time to add a bit of sparkle. So, of course, Christmas wouldn't be Christmas without a little bit of glitter. So I thought that I would add some glitter to the champagne gold handles. Now they're perfectly beautiful the way they are, but let's be honest, it just needs a little extra sparkle. So I'm going in with some Mod Podge and I am just dipping my small paintbrush in that, and then I am going to take this champagne gold extra fine glitter and I'm just going to dump it on there and shake it around, shake that glitter off, and now we have a glittery handle. And we are going to just repeat this process for all of the handles that we have in all 24 of our little drawers here. So I'm just going in and letting that dry in between. And then once you have the last one done, you will notice you have a giant pile of glitter. Well, that does not go to waste. So just unscrew the cap of your glitter and then take that cardboard that you were working on, fold it down the middle, and then just dump the glitter right back in the box. And then you don't have to waste any of your glitter. And this is exactly how I love to work whenever I'm working with glitter, is having that either a piece of paper or ideally a cardboard box underneath to be able to do this. Really saves time on that cleanup and mess as well. So by this point, you can start to add even more glitter on those other pieces. So I started with the first box that I was doing, and I am just adding some dots along those little blue dots for snowflakes. And then I am going to add some super fine glitter in this iridescent white color, and that is going to act like little snowflakes. Now that being said, I thought that it was also really nice to add details. So actually painting on some of the details, like the dress in this one here, I am painting nicely along where that dress is with Mod Podge. Now the key to this is making sure that you have a very thin layer, and then go over it with your glitter and dust it off, and it looks absolutely stunning. If it's too thick, it gets to be a little bit globby and you tend to lose the detail in the picture behind it. So really make sure that you're using a fine layer of glitter. Next, well, we got to add some sparkle to our Christmas tree as well. So I am putting on a nice even layer of Mod Podge right along the edge of the tree, just along the sides, and I am sprinkling that extra fine glitter along here. And then I am going to repeat that on all 3 tiers on both sides of our tree. And I'm not going over where I have the washi tape because I really want that gold to pop and stand on its own. So I'm just glittering up those sides between it. Make sure you dust off any of that glitter in between and just come down and get all that glitter on. And I apologize if you hear a little bit of jingling in the background. It is not Santa. It is actually my 2 puppies that are playing right here in my studio. And now it's time to seal everything up. So once it is dry, I went in with a clear acrylic spray paint that is used as a top coat. And this one here has a satin finish, so it did give a little bit of a shiny finish to it. And I also spray painted the boxes, both the inside as well as the outside of these little drawers, to make sure that everything stayed and we didn't have any glitter that came off.
Snowfall and the world is aglow with cheer today. Throw all of your worries and woes and cares astray.
Now, I really enjoyed making this, and it's something that I know I'm going to use year after year with my children as well as myself, because let's be honest, I am a sucker for chocolate, especially a good milk chocolate. So I'm going to fill this up for some yummy treats for my children and myself to enjoy this holiday season. And I do hope this has inspired you to make your own wooden advent calendar. Until next time, makers, let's get our sewspiration on.
Winter's here to stay.